The afternoon light slanted through the blinds of Martin Greene's corner office, casting stripes across the polished mahogany conference table. 3 people sat in rigid silence, their faces frozen in various states of disbelief. Charlotte, the eldest at 56, with her mother's high cheekbones and steel grey hair cut in an expensive bob. Michael, 52, broad-shouldered and perpetually frowning, his fingers drumming an impatient rhythm against his leg. And Jessica, the youngest at 48, still beautiful but tired around the eyes, clutching a crumpled tissue that hadn't yet seen use. Across from them, Martin adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. He'd been the Greene family attorney for 30 years. This wasn't his first difficult reading, but it was perhaps the most unexpected. "Before we continue," he said, voice measured and calm, "I want to emphasize that everything I'm about to read reflects the explicit wishes of Loretta Greene, of sound mind and body, when this will was signed and notarized 14 months ago." Charlotte's spine straightened. "Just read it, Martin." Martin nodded, glanced down at the document and began. "I, Loretta Marie Greene, being of sound mind and body, do hereby make, publish, and declare this to be my last will and testament, hereby revoking all wills and codicils previously made by me." The standard legal preamble washed over the siblings. They'd expected this part. What they hadn't expected was what came next. "I direct that all my just debts and funeral expenses be paid as soon as practicable after my death. As to my worldly estate, both real and personal of every kind and description and wherever situated, I give, devise, and bequeath as follows." Martin paused, took a breath. "To my 3 children, Charlotte Ann Woods, Michael Thomas Greene, and Jessica Marie Cohen, I leave my eternal love and the memories we shared in happier times." Jessica's hand flew to her mouth. "I hereby give, devise, and bequeath all the rest, residue, and remainder of my estate, whether real, personal, or mixed, of whatever kind and wherever situated, of which I may die seized or possessed, or to which I may in any way be entitled at the time of my death, to Monica Liu." A silence so heavy it filled the room like fog. Charlotte was the first to break it. "Who the hell is Monica Liu?" 6 years earlier, Loretta Greene sat alone at her kitchen table, just as she did most mornings. Breakfast for 1, half a grapefruit, a slice of whole wheat toast, and a cup of black coffee. Before Richard died 9 years ago, breakfast had been eggs and bacon on Sundays, pancakes when the grandchildren visited. Now her doctor had her watching her cholesterol, and the grandchildren visited only on carefully orchestrated holidays, if then. The kitchen was immaculate, everything in its place. The house, once full of family, now felt like a museum to a life already lived. Through the window, Loretta could see Mrs. Abernathy from next door walking her Pomeranian. She'd lived in this house for 43 years, raised 3 children here, but sometimes she felt like a stranger in her own neighborhood. Her phone sat on the table. She'd been staring at it for 20 minutes, working up the courage to make the call. It was Charlotte's birthday, her firstborn, her driven, successful daughter, who'd somehow inherited all of Richard's ambition and none of his warmth. Finally, she picked it up and dialed. "Mom?" "Hi! Sorry, I'm just heading into a meeting." Charlotte's voice was breathless, distracted. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." "Thanks." "Sorry, can I call you back later? We've got the quarterly review and..." "Of course. I just wanted to hear your voice. I have that recipe you asked for." "Recipe? Oh, the chicken thing. Right. Listen, I'll call you this weekend, okay? Promise." "I was thinking maybe I could come visit, see the grandkids. It's been..." "That would be great. Let's figure it out when I call back. Sorry, they're waving me in. Love you." The call ended before Loretta could respond. She placed the phone down carefully and returned to her breakfast. The grapefruit had grown bitter while she'd been building her courage. She didn't have to check her calendar to know it was empty for the day, for the week. It hadn't always been this way. There had been bridge club on Tuesdays, volunteer work at the hospital on Thursdays. But her bridge friends had moved to Florida or into assisted living, and her back pain made standing for long periods at the hospital impossible. Only her garden still gave her joy. Richard had been the gardener originally, but after he passed, she'd taken it over. In her backyard, roses and hydrangeas bloomed in careful patterns, a living memorial to the man she still missed every day. The hospice nurse arrived 3 days later, sent by Dr. Feldman after Loretta's last checkup revealed concerning signs. Her COPD was worsening, and while she wasn't terminal, the doctor thought some home health assistance might help her maintain independence longer. "Mrs. Greene, I'm Monica Liu from Evergreen Hospice. Dr. Feldman arranged for me to check in on you." The young woman standing on Loretta's porch looked to be in her mid-30s, with straight black hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. She wore simple scrubs and carried a medical bag, but there was something immediately disarming about her smile. "I told Walter I don't need a nurse," Loretta said, but she stepped back to let Monica in anyway. "Dr. Feldman mentioned you'd say that," Monica replied with a small laugh. "I'm not here to take over your life, just to check your vitals and make sure you're managing your symptoms okay. May I come in?" The first visit was brief and professional. Monica checked Loretta's blood pressure, listened to her lungs, reviewed her medications, and asked questions about her daily routine. When she noticed the garden through the kitchen window, her face lit up. "Those roses are spectacular. Do you garden?" Something in Loretta softened. "My husband started it. I've kept it up since he passed. My grandmother was a gardener. She used to say you could tell everything about a person by how they tended their plants." Monica smiled. "Yours tells me you're patient and detail-oriented." Before she left, Monica scheduled another visit for the following week. Loretta didn't expect to look forward to it, but she found herself tidying up the living room the morning Monica was due to return. "What do you mean, who is Monica Liu?" Martin asked, genuinely confused. "She wasn't mentioned to you." "No, she wasn't mentioned to us," Michael snapped, his voice rising. "We've never heard this name in our lives. Is she a caretaker? Someone from church?" Martin shuffled through his notes. "According to the information I have, she was a hospice nurse who visited your mother weekly for approximately 4 years. When your mother updated her will, she listed Ms. Liu as her primary caretaker and closest friend." Jessica made a noise somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "Closest friend? Mom had bridge club friends, neighborhood friends. Not some nurse we never even heard about." "When was the last time any of you visited your mother?" Martin asked, his tone more curious than accusatory. The siblings exchanged uncomfortable glances. "I called her every Sunday," Charlotte said defensively. "I have 3 kids and a full-time executive position. I couldn't just drop everything to visit Ohio every month." "I saw her at Christmas," Michael added. "Well, last Christmas. Not this past one. Diane wanted to go to her parents in Florida." Jessica said nothing, twisting the tissue between her fingers. Martin sighed. "I'm not judging you, but according to the notes your mother left with this will, Monica Liu visited her every Wednesday for 4 years. They celebrated holidays together. When your mother broke her hip 2 years ago, Monica stayed overnight at the hospital with her." Charlotte's eyes narrowed. "This is textbook undue influence. Mom was elderly and isolated. This woman clearly took advantage." "Ms. Liu has been informed of the will," Martin interrupted gently. "She was as surprised as you are. She tried to refuse the inheritance." This stopped Charlotte mid-sentence. "What?" "She said, and I quote, 'I didn't do anything to deserve this. I was just doing my job and then we became friends. Michael leaned forward. So she'll give it up? Return the estate to the family? Martin shook his head. Number. When I explained that it was legally hers and that your mother had been explicit about her wishes, she accepted it. But she did say something else I thought was interesting. He consulted his notes again. She said, Loretta wanted them to understand something. I hope they'll take the time to hear it. The weekly visits became the highlight of Loretta's increasingly quiet life. Monica would arrive Wednesday afternoons, perform the necessary medical checks, and then, increasingly, stay for tea, sometimes longer. 3 months into their arrangement, Loretta was showing Monica how to make her famous apple pie, the recipe that had won the county fair 3 years running back in the 1980s. My daughter Charlotte used to love helping with the lattice top, Loretta said as she demonstrated the weaving technique. She had such precise little fingers, even as a child. Now she's a marketing executive in Chicago, too busy for baking. Monica worked beside her, clumsily attempting to replicate the pattern. Do you see her often? Loretta's hands stilled momentarily. Not as much as I'd like. They're all so busy with their own lives now. Charlotte has 3 children and a big job. Michael travels constantly for work, and Jessica ... She trailed off. What about Jessica? Monica prompted gently. Jessica and I, we've had our differences. She thought I was too hard on her growing up. Maybe I was. Richard was the soft touch. I was the disciplinarian. Loretta resumed her work on the pie. After he died, there wasn't much left between us except the hard parts. Monica nodded, absorbing this. Family is complicated. What about yours? Loretta asked, grateful for the chance to change the subject. A shadow crossed Monica's face. My parents both passed when I was in nursing school. Car accident, no siblings. My grandmother raised me, but she died 5 years ago. I'm so sorry. Monica shrugged, but Loretta could see the grief still lived close to the surface. It shaped me, made me understand how precious time is with the people we love. She looked up with a small smile. It's why I do this work. Everyone deserves care and company, especially near the end. Something silent passed between them. Recognition, perhaps. 2 women who understood loss, standing in a kitchen making pie as the afternoon light waned. Well, Loretta said finally, this pie isn't going to bake itself. The Greene siblings convened at their mother's house, now technically Monica Liu's house, the following day. Charlotte had insisted on seeing the place, convinced they would find evidence of manipulation or coercion. But what they found instead was simply their mother's home, exactly as it had always been, but with subtle signs of a life they hadn't been part of. There were photographs they'd never seen. Loretta and a young Asian woman, presumably Monica, smiling in the garden, the 2 of them at what looked like a community theater production. Loretta blowing out candles on a birthday cake with Monica beside her, party hats on both their heads. 81st birthday, Jessica said quietly, picking up the framed photo. I sent flowers. I called, Charlotte said defensively. I was in Seattle for a conference. Michael muttered. I sent a gift card. They moved through the house like archaeologists, piecing together the story of their mother's final years through objects and arrangements. In the kitchen, 2 teacups and saucers were displayed prominently on an open shelf. One floral, one with a pattern of birds. The refrigerator held containers labeled in unfamiliar handwriting, chicken soup, freeze by Thursday, and Mum's favorite chocolate pudding. Mum. The word hit like a blow. Raw. Unprepared. In the living room, a soft throw blanket was draped over Loretta's favorite armchair, and beside it, a bookshelf held dozens of paperback mysteries, their mother's favorite, many with small post-it notes sticking out from between pages. Charlotte pulled one out and opened it to a marked page. In neat handwriting. Loretta, reminded me of your story about the summer cabin. M. She called her Loretta, Charlotte said, something complicated happening in her voice. Not Mrs. Greene. In the master bedroom, Jessica found a pill organizer on the nightstand, meticulously filled for the week. Beside it, a journal. She hesitated only a moment before opening it. Listen to this, she called to her siblings. Wednesday. Monica brought tulips, yellow ones like Richard used to plant. We watched that British baking show she got me hooked on, laughed until my sides hurt. When she left, the house felt so empty. I thought about calling the kids, but it was late in their time zones. Maybe tomorrow. Jessica turned pages. Sunday, Charlotte called. So good to hear her voice, even if just for 10 minutes. She sounds tired. I wish I could help somehow, but she never wants advice, just to tell me about her successes. I'm proud, but sometimes I wish she would just talk to me about ordinary things. Charlotte looked away. Michael's birthday. Sent a card last week. Left a voicemail today. No response yet. Monica says kids get busy, not to take it personally. She's kind to say so, but we both know the truth. When you become inconvenient to your children's lives, you become invisible. Michael cleared his throat roughly. That's not fair. I called her back eventually. 3 weeks later, Jessica said, still reading. She kept track, wrote it down the day you finally called. The tension in the room was thickening when the doorbell rang. The siblings froze, looking at each other guiltily, as if caught trespassing, which, in a way, they were. By the second year of their arrangement, Monica's visits had extended well beyond the medical necessities. Officially, she checked Loretta's vitals, managed her medications, and assessed her breathing. Unofficially, they had become friends. They watched old movies together, worked in the garden. Sometimes Monica brought takeout from the Thai restaurant down the street, introducing Loretta to flavors she'd never tried in her 8 decades of life. Too spicy. Loretta had gasped after her first bite of green curry, reaching frantically for water. Monica had laughed, passing her a glass of milk instead. Milk works better than water. Dairy neutralizes the capsaicin. Loretta drank gratefully. Learn something new every day. That's why I like you, Loretta. Most people your age are set in their ways. Most people my age are just waiting to die, Loretta replied, attempting another, smaller bite of curry. I've done enough of that since Richard passed. It was the most directly she'd addressed her loneliness, and Monica didn't let it pass unremarked. You have so much life in you still, she said. Your children don't know what they're missing. Loretta waved a dismissive hand. They're busy, important lives. So was yours, Monica countered. You raised them, supported their dreams, helped with their children. Now they're too busy to return the favor? Loretta looked startled at the edge in Monica's voice. You sound angry on my behalf. I am, Monica admitted. I lost my parents suddenly. No warning, no goodbye. Do you know what I would give for one more conversation? One more ordinary Wednesday dinner? And your children have you right here, wanting to be part of their lives, and they're too busy. The outburst hung between them. Monica looked immediately apologetic. I'm sorry. That was unprofessional and presumptuous. But Loretta reached across the table and covered Monica's hand with her own. It's all right. Sometimes I'm angry too. I just don't let myself feel it. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Tell me about your grandmother, Loretta said finally. The gardener. Monica's smile returned slowly. She was amazing, stubborn as they come. Emigrated from Taiwan in her 40s, barely speaking English, and built a whole new life. She used to say that gardening taught her everything important about life in America. What grows here? What needs protection? What thrives on neglect? Smart woman. She would have liked you. That night, after Monica left, Loretta sat in her garden until the fireflies came out, thinking about what grows and what withers when neglected. Michael opened the front door to find a woman who could only be Monica Liu standing on the porch, keys in hand and surprise evident on her face. "Oh," she said, "I didn't realize anyone would be here." For a moment, nobody spoke. The siblings stared at this stranger who had somehow become central to their mother's life, and now her legacy. Monica recovered first, extending her hand. "You must be Loretta's children. I'm Monica." Michael shook her hand automatically. "You're the nurse." "Yes." She hesitated. "I'm so sorry for your loss. Loretta was very special to me." "Apparently," Charlotte said coolly from behind Michael. "Special enough to leave her entire estate to." Monica didn't flinch at the hostility. "I understand this must be shocking for you. I tried to refuse the inheritance, but the lawyer said your mother was very clear about her wishes." "And what were those wishes exactly?" Charlotte demanded. "What did our mother tell you that she couldn't tell her own children?" Monica's expression softened with something that looked dangerously like pity. "I think that's something you should hear from her, not me." "She's dead," Michael said bluntly. "Yes," Monica agreed, "but she left something for each of you. May I come in? It's in her office." The siblings exchanged glances before reluctantly stepping aside. They followed Monica through the familiar house, as if she were the owner and they the visitors, which, legally speaking, was now the case. In Loretta's small office, Monica went directly to the desk and unlocked the bottom drawer with a key from her pocket. From it, she removed a wooden box, weathered and obviously old. "This was her memory box," Monica explained. "When she decided to change her will, she prepared this for you." She handed the box to Jessica, who was standing closest. "She wanted you to have this, regardless of whether you contested the will, but especially if you did." Jessica opened the box with trembling hands. Inside were 3 sealed envelopes, each bearing a name: Charlotte, Michael, Jessica. "I'll give you privacy," Monica said, moving toward the door. "Take as long as you need. I can come back another day." "Wait," Jessica said suddenly. The youngest sibling had been the quietest, but now she looked directly at Monica with red-rimmed eyes. "Were you with her? At the end?" Monica paused, her hand on the doorframe. "Yes, she went peacefully. Her last coherent words were about her garden. She wanted me to make sure the roses were pruned properly in the spring." A small, sad smile. "I promised her I would." After Monica left, the siblings sat in their mother's office, each holding an envelope, none making a move to open it. "This is absurd," Charlotte finally said. "Are we really going to sit here and let some stranger walk away with Mom's entire estate because of a few letters?" Michael turned his envelope over, the weight of it suddenly unbearable. His gaze drifted to the corner of the room where an old wooden trunk sat half open. Inside, he glimpsed the worn leather of his childhood baseball glove, the one his father had bought him for his 10th birthday, the one he'd promised to pass down to his own son, but had somehow never gotten around to doing. "What choice do we have?" he said quietly, still staring at the glove. "The will is legal. Martin confirmed it." "We can contest it," Charlotte insisted. "Undue influence, diminished capacity. There are options." Jessica finally spoke up. "Before we do that, shouldn't we at least read what Mom wanted to tell us?" The 3rd year of their friendship brought challenges. Loretta's health declined sharply after a fall resulted in a broken hip. The recovery was slow and frustrating for a woman who had always prided herself on her independence. Monica visited more frequently during this period, sometimes bringing groceries, doing light housekeeping, or simply sitting with Loretta while she navigated the complex emotions of increasing frailty. "I hate being helpless," Loretta confessed one afternoon, struggling with her physical therapy exercises. "You're not helpless, you're healing," Monica corrected gently. "There's a difference." "At my age, there isn't much difference. This is the beginning of the end, and we both know it." Monica sat beside her on the sofa. "Maybe, but it's not the end yet." During her recovery, Loretta received flowers from her children, phone calls, even a brief visit from Charlotte. But as the weeks passed and the crisis faded, so did their attention. The calls became less frequent again. The promised visit from Jessica never materialized. "I need to ask you something," Loretta said one Wednesday, as Monica helped her into the garden for the first time since her fall. It was spring, and the early tulips were blooming in brilliant yellows and reds. "Why do you spend so much time with me? Your job doesn't require weekly visits anymore, let alone friendship." Monica looked surprised by the question. "You know why?" Humor an old woman. Monica guided her to the garden bench. "When my grandmother died, I was already working in hospice. I thought I understood death, grief, loss. I was the professional after all." She smiled ruefully. "But being on the other side, it changed everything. I realized how many of our patients were like her, full of stories, wisdom, love, with no one really listening anymore." She took Loretta's hand. "And then I met you, so vibrant, so thoughtful. Your children running their busy lives, missing all the best parts of who their mother is now, not just who she was when they needed her. At first, I just wanted to be someone who saw you, really saw you. And then," she shrugged, "then, selfishly, I realized how much I looked forward to Wednesdays." Tears welled in Loretta's eyes. "I look forward to them too. More than I should, probably." "There's no should about it. We're friends, real friends. My children would say you're taking advantage of a lonely old woman." Monica's laugh was genuine. "Loretta, you're the least taken advantage of person I know. You argued with me for 30 minutes last week about whether Ross and Rachel were really on a break." Loretta chuckled despite herself. "They were. They absolutely were not, but that's beside the point." Monica squeezed her hand. "Your children don't know what they're missing. That's their loss, not yours." Later that night, alone in her bedroom, Loretta took out the photo of her 3 children from her nightstand, traced their faces with a fingertip, remembered first steps, graduations, weddings, all the pride and worry and fierce, consuming love of motherhood. Then she opened her desk drawer and took out her will. Charlotte opened her letter first. Her hands were steady, but her breath caught as she unfolded the familiar stationery, cream-colored with a small flower embossed in the corner. Their mother had used the same writing paper for decades. "My dearest Charlotte," she read aloud, voice clinical and detached. "If you're reading this, you've just learned that I've left my estate to Monica Liu instead of to you and your siblings. You're hurt, confused, and probably angry. You may even be planning to contest the will. Before you do, I ask that you read this letter completely." Charlotte paused, took a steadying breath, and continued. "First, I want you to know that I have always been immensely proud of you. From your first steps, to your Harvard graduation, to watching you build your career and raise your beautiful children, my heart has swelled with pride at the woman you've become. You are everything your father and I hoped you would be, successful, strong, and determined." She faltered slightly before continuing. "But somewhere along the way, Charlotte, I became an item on your to-do list. A Sunday afternoon phone call to check off between your dry cleaning and your Monday morning meeting prep. I understand. Truly I do. Your life is full and demanding. But in the last years of my life, when I had only empty rooms and quiet afternoons, I needed more than efficiency from my daughter. I needed connection. Monica gave me that connection. Not because she's a better person than you, but because she had the one thing you never gave yourself permission to have. Time. Time to listen to my stories, even the ones you've heard before. Time to sit in comfortable silence. Time to simply be present. This inheritance isn't a punishment. It's a recognition of who showed up, not just physically, but emotionally, who made space in their life for me when I needed it most. I love you, Charlotte. I always have and I always will. But love without presence becomes a ghost, a shadow of what might have been. If you contest this will, you might win. Monica has no interest in fighting you. But ask yourself, what would you be winning? Money you don't need? A house full of memories you were too busy to help create? Whatever you decide, know that I forgive you. I hope someday you'll forgive yourself. All my love, Mom. Charlotte lowered the letter, her professional composure finally cracking as tears spilled down her cheeks. Michael opened his next. His letter echoed similar themes, but spoke specifically to his tendency to make promises he didn't keep. Holidays he'd planned to attend but cancelled last minute. Visits perpetually rescheduled. Phone calls returned days or weeks late. I stopped believing you, he read, voice rough. Not because you meant to lie, but because your intentions never translated to actions. Monica never promised grand gestures. She simply showed up, week after week. That reliability meant everything to me. Jessica's hands shook so badly she could barely open her envelope. Of the 3 siblings, her relationship with their mother had been the most openly complicated. Years of arguments, misunderstandings, and hurt feelings that never quite healed. My Jessica. She read through tears. You once told me I was too critical, that nothing you did was ever good enough. You were right. I see that now, too late. I held you to impossible standards because I saw so much of myself in you, all my vulnerabilities, all my fears. I thought I was protecting you by pushing you to be stronger. Instead, I pushed you away. I don't blame you for the distance between us. That was my failure, not yours. But in these last years, I reached out so many times, hoping we might find our way back to each other. Your silence was the hardest to bear. Monica came into my life when I had almost given up hope of meaningful connection. She saw past my defenses, my pride, my regrets. She gave me the gift of being known, truly known, in my final chapter. This inheritance isn't about the money. It's about acknowledging the truth. She became the daughter who sat with me in my garden, laughed with me over silly television shows, held my hand when the pain was bad. She listened without judgment to stories about you 3, all my love and all my regrets. I wish it could have been you instead. I wish all of you had known me as I was at the end, softer, wiser, more open. But we don't get to choose how our stories end, only how we respond to the endings we're given. I love you, my difficult, beautiful daughter. I always have, even when neither of us could find the words to bridge the gap between us. Mom. The silence that followed was profound. 3 siblings, united in grief and regret, finally understanding the cost of their absence. The seasons turned, and Loretta's garden flowered and faded under her watchful eye and Monica's increasingly capable assistance. Their Wednesday ritual expanded sometimes to include Sundays, holidays, impromptu movie nights. They celebrated Loretta's 83rd birthday, together with a small chocolate cake and a single candle. One candle is more dignified, Loretta had insisted. 83 would be a fire hazard. Monica had laughed and taken a photo of Loretta, blowing out that solitary flame, wish held secret behind her smile. Later, as summer turned to fall, Loretta's health began its final decline. The COPD that had first brought Monica into her life worsened steadily. There were more medications, more medical equipment in the house, more difficult conversations. "I'm not afraid of dying," Loretta confessed one evening, as they sat in the garden watching fireflies rise from the grass like embers. "I'm afraid of being forgotten." Monica looked at her, this woman who had become so much more than a patient. "Your children won't forget you. They've already forgotten the most important parts," Loretta replied, without bitterness, just a quiet certainty. "They remember the mother who packed lunches and attended recitals. They'll remember the inheritance they expected but didn't receive. But they never knew me, not really, not as a person separate from what I could give them." She reached for Monica's hand. "You know me. That's worth everything." When winter came, Loretta was bedridden most days. Monica took leave from her other patients to be with her around the clock. They both knew what was coming. In those final weeks, Loretta spoke often about her children, stories from when they were small, hopes for what they might yet understand. She asked Monica to promise that, no matter how the siblings responded to the will, she would give them the letters. "They'll be angry," Monica warned. "They might blame you." "Let them," Loretta said, with the clarity of the dying. "Anger is just grief with nowhere to go. Eventually, they'll understand." She died on a Wednesday morning in early February, Monica holding her hand as the snow fell softly outside her bedroom window. Her last coherent words were about her garden, a request that the roses be properly pruned in spring. Monica promised they would be. 6 months after the reading of the will, Monica Liu stood alone at Loretta's grave. She'd brought fresh flowers, yellow roses from the garden Loretta had loved so much, and cleared away the faded arrangements left weeks earlier. The legal battle she'd expected never materialized. After reading their mother's letters, the Greene siblings had withdrawn their objections to the will. They'd been polite, if distant, in subsequent interactions about the estate. The house was now legally Monica's, though she hadn't moved in. Couldn't quite bring herself to claim that space just yet. She was arranging the roses in the cemetery vase when she heard footsteps approaching. Looking up, she saw Jessica walking toward her across the manicured grass. "I thought I might find you here today," Jessica said. "It's Wednesday." Monica nodded. 6 months after Loretta's death, she still kept their Wednesday appointment in some form or another. "How are you?" she asked, genuinely curious. Jessica looked different than she had in the lawyer's office, softer somehow, less defensive. "I'm processing, still." She gestured to the flowers. "Those are from Mum's garden?" "Yes, the rose bushes really thrived this year." Jessica smiled faintly. She always did have a green thumb, unlike me. I kill houseplants within weeks. An awkward silence fell between them, two women connected only by their love for someone no longer present. "I wanted to thank you," Jessica finally said, "for being there for her, for seeing her as a person, not just our mother." Monica nodded, unexpected tears threatening. She was remarkable, funny and stubborn and thoughtful. I wish I'd known that version of her. Jessica's voice caught. In my memories, she's always just disappointed. I never gave us the chance to know each other differently. She understood more than you might think, Monica offered gently. She talked about all of you so much. She was proud of you, even through the hurt. Jessica looked away, blinking rapidly. I've been seeing a therapist, trying to understand why I kept my distance all those years, why it was easier to harbor old resentments than to try again. She looked back at Monica. It's complicated, isn't it? Family. The most complicated thing there is. Another silence. more comfortable this time. "I have a favor to ask," Jessica said finally. "The inheritance, Mom's things. I don't want any of it back. That's not why I'm here. But there are some photo albums, letters from when we were kids, things that tell our family story. Would it be possible to make copies, maybe? For me and my siblings?" Monica smiled. "Of course. Actually, she already sorted a box for each of you. Mementos she thought you'd want someday. They're in the attic. I was going to have them shipped, but you could come by the house instead, see the garden while it's still in bloom." Jessica hesitated only briefly before nodding. "I'd like that." As they stood together at Loretta's grave, something subtle shifted between them. Not quite friendship, but understanding. Recognition of the complex ways people can love the same person while knowing entirely different versions of them. "Mom's letter said something that's been haunting me," Jessica admitted. "About how love without presence becomes a ghost. I don't want to live with any more ghosts than I already do." Monica thought about her own parents, gone so suddenly, about her grandmother, about Loretta. None of us should. 1 year after Loretta's death, Monica still lived in her own apartment, but visited the greenhouse regularly to tend the garden and keep the place from feeling abandoned. She'd befriended Mrs. Abernathy next door, who sometimes joined her for tea and shared stories about Loretta from decades past, when the neighborhood was full of young families and children played in sprinklers during summer afternoons. On this particular day, as Monica pruned the late autumn rose bushes, Charlotte's car pulled into the driveway. Of the 3 siblings, Charlotte had been the most resistant to acceptance, the most businesslike in their limited interactions. Monica straightened, pulling off her gardening gloves as Charlotte approached. "The roses look good," Charlotte said by way of greeting. "Mom would be pleased." "I hope so," Monica replied. She was very specific about how they should be cared for. Charlotte nodded, glancing around the garden that had been her childhood backdrop. Her gaze settled on the weathered wooden bench near the hydrangeas, its armrests smooth from years of Loretta's hands resting there, the seats slightly uneven where she and Monica had sat countless afternoons. Charlotte approached it slowly, running her fingers along the worn wood. "She sat here every day, didn't she?" Charlotte asked quietly. "Yes. Said it had the best view of the garden and caught the afternoon light perfectly." Charlotte's professional facade finally cracked as she sank onto the bench. "I haven't sat here since I was a teenager. Mum used to call it her thinking bench." She shook her head, something like wonder in her expression. "All those phone calls, and I never once asked her where she was sitting when we talked." "I've been thinking about Mum's letter," she continued after a moment. "About being efficient instead of present." She cleared her throat. "In my corporate world, efficiency is everything. I applied the same principles to family without realizing what I was sacrificing." Monica waited, sensing there was more. "I'm not here to contest anything," Charlotte clarified. "I've accepted Mom's decision, but I am here to ask." She hesitated. "Would you tell me about her, the version of her I missed? The one who laughed at British baking shows and learned to eat Thai food?" Something warm and unexpected bloomed in Monica's chest. Relief, perhaps, or the simple joy of being able to share Loretta with someone who should have known her. "I'd like that," she said softly. "Would you like to come inside? I was just about to make tea." As they walked toward the house, Loretta's house that now contained Monica's belongings alongside the family heirlooms, Charlotte paused at the threshold. "You know, I keep expecting to feel like a visitor here. But the truth is, I've been a visitor in Mom's life for years. I just didn't realize it until it was too late." Monica touched her arm lightly. "It's never too late to understand. That's what your mother believed." Estate planner Nathan Hargrove has handled hundreds of wills in his 30-year career. Few have been as poignant or instructive as Loretta Greene's. What struck me about this case wasn't the legal precedent. There wasn't one, really. The will was properly executed, the testator of sound mind. What struck me was the emotional wake-up call it represented, he explains from his downtown office. Too often, we think of inheritance as a financial transaction, assets transferring from one generation to the next. But what Loretta Greene understood was that inheritance is actually about presence, about showing up, not just for holidays or emergencies, but for the quiet, ordinary moments. Hargrove leans forward, his expression earnest. I tell my clients now, you don't get to inherit presence, you earn it. Day by day, visit by visit, phone call by phone call. The clients who understand this leave behind more than money. They leave peace. The Greene siblings learned this lesson the hardest way possible. But there's still hope for the rest of us, to recognize the quiet ways our parents and grandparents might be feeling invisible before it's too late to see them. After all, legacy isn't measured in dollar signs, but in the time we give to those we claim to love. Sometimes the greatest inheritance is simply being present while we still can. Have you ever seen a will tear a family apart, or reveal a truth no one wanted to face? Share your story in the comments. Your voice might help someone rethink what truly matters. And if you believe legacy is about more than money, like this video and subscribe to Gold Print, because sometimes the people we miss most just wanted to be seen while they were still here.